make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local Lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, 3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny sent you.
Hey there. Hi there, ho there. It is a Tuesday edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show. Jeff Byers, Chris Buganani with you. The dear Goon is not with us today.
Yeah. You don't want to alarm anybody. Just Goon maybe has some kind of a health issue going on. Nothing life-threatening or anything, but put him out of commission for the day. So I'm pinch hitting.
And we, as always, appreciate that. Lots to get into, lots going on in the world of sports. World Cup is continuing, and Argentina jumping out to the, well, what we would say in America, a 2-0 lead in soccer. What the rest of the world would say is a 2-0 lead in football.
I know that much, yes.
Let's start with just the Rose Bowl and just the lead up to it. And I will say one of the, and I'm not faulting anybody. It's the reality of the world as we know it and all of that. And I get it. And I'm not here to argue one way or the other, good, bad, indifferent. But it from a fan standpoint, right? One of the cool things about playing Utah was seeing big time tight end, big time opportunity. Yeah. And again, it's across the board outside of the playoffs. And I'm even wondering in the playoffs as we move this thing down the road, if you're not going to have some guys, well, yeah, the playoffs would be cool, but I got, I already made $1 million in my NIL deals here, and I have another $10 million contract. I mean, I think most of these guys, if not all, are competitive enough that, if you have a chance to win a national title. But could I see a day where, there is a guy somewhere along the way who says, no, I've made enough money. I don't need to risk the injury here because I got another pot of gold waiting for me. And I can see it happen. I think that'll be the exception, not the rule. What we're seeing in the Rose Bowl with the opt-outs is obviously the rule now, not the exception, with the top tier talent, with the guys that are probably top 3 projected for sure, and under serious consideration for anybody that believes they have a reasonable shot at being drafted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to have only seen one player opt out for Penn State. And I do think, to your point, you're going to start seeing some kind of participate if you're healthy clauses put into maybe some NIL deals, but definitely when we eventually get to revenue sharing, which we are going to at some point, you're going to see that, I think, for sure. In the interim, I guess it's one of these deals where some of it is dependent on where your program has been the last few years. Penn State
for sure
has some kids who came here dreaming of playing in this game and, had 2 rough seasons in a row. So you could tell, like, the second half of the season as the Rose Bowl went on the table, we would bring it up on the Players Show a little bit, and Goon talked about it. You could see these guys where they were excited about the prospect of going to Pasadena. On the other hand, if you're on Utah, you just went there last year.
Yeah.
And so I think that, as far as what I have seen in opt-outs, that seems to make a big difference when you get to the New Year's Six Bowls, where the program has been the last few years. If they've been up top, you see their top talent opting out. If they've been struggling a little bit, I think those guys cherish the opportunity to play in one of the bigger bowls, and you see fewer Jair Brown caliber players. And it looks to me like Jair's probably going to play in the Rose Bowl.
Sure seems
he's not
like
indicated
it.
anything to the contrary.
Yep.
You see a little bit more of that.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's been neat to.
I wonder whether, if Joey Porter hadn't had the appendicitis scare, whether maybe he plays. But once that happens, it changes your outlook, where you think, oh,
for sure,
man, I'm one thing away, right? And I'm so close to being a first-round pick. By the way, the first ever Penn State defensive back drafted in the first round, if it happens.
Is that right? The first one in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, I think defensive back, period, but certainly cornerback.
It was third, yeah.
Because Kim Herring was, I think, a second-round pick. I'm trying to think of guys.
Yeah, by the Ravens.
Brian Scott,
Perry
I think,
was like
a third round
by the Steelers. Yeah, they.
I'm pretty sure no Penn State defensive back has gone in the first round. We'll check that out for everybody, but I know for sure we've never had a corner go first round. But I think anybody out of the defensive backfield.
Huh. That's a pretty interesting little stat. Yeah, I do think this Rose Bowl is still going to be a lot of fun and provide, again, plenty of good storylines and intrigue. But I really think, as I've been talking with some other friends and stuff, I really do think this has a chance to be that stepping stone game, to get the – and different people are going to view this differently, but this is, if Penn State gets it, this is a signature victory for James Franklin this season. I mean, this is a really good Utah team, and it's the Rose Bowl. So, if you get that combined with the 10 wins in the regular season, and again, the star value of the players that are coming back next year, starting obviously with the two running backs and the quarterback, and you go to the linebacking, and there's, I think, going to be a lot of attention placed. I mean, I think expectations locally will be very high, but I think nationally, Penn State is going to get a ton of preseason attention. I don't know exactly where they're going to be ranked, but they are going to be one of the teams that everybody is talking about, and we'll be doing profiles on the aforementioned players and projecting, how this Big Ten race is going to play out with Penn State very much part of the mix in that preseason coverage next year. Now, how this team next year handles all of that, it remains to be seen, because it is different when you're getting all of the, hats off to the team this year and what it accomplished and the way it went about its business and all of that. But they were able to sneak up on some people this year. There were not a lot of expectations and demands placed on it.
Not the case next year.
In the preseason. No. Correct. And I think, the hope is, and Goon's talked a lot about it, but the leadership that was shown this year by that senior class, the hope is that group really, that leadership pays off by having these guys absorb the lessons of what these guys were telling them, the example they were setting, and that you see that carry over, and you don't get too caught up in, hey, we're 11-2 and we're preseason 4, and I'm making up obviously the preseason ranking, but and that you tend to your knitting and you take care of business day in and day out. Because I do think this team next year, if it is healthy and everybody makes the normal progress that you would expect from one season to a next in terms of, weight, strength, development, and all of that, I mean, this team should be right in the mix next year, right? Like, I mean,
Absolutely.
There's no reason for it not to be from a talent standpoint.
I had somebody ask me the other day, is it a disappointment for Penn State if they don't make the playoffs next year? And I think the answer is probably yes.
Well, I think it is a definitive yes and a resounding yes for several reasons. One, let's start with James Franklin when he came in. And I liked it. A lot of people didn't like it, and I can understand either side. I like the bravado and that, hey, our standard is we're going to dominate the state in recruiting. We're going to be, a contending team every year in the Big Ten. We're looking to win Big Ten titles. We're looking to win national championships, right? Like, I mean, I'm okay with all of that talk, but the downside of it is, if you haven't dominated the state in recruiting, if you haven't been to the playoffs, let alone won a national title, and you're getting, closing in on a decade of being the head coach of the program, people start. So I wondering whether or not it was all show. Now, listen, I think the results, to be fair to Franklin here, and I know the last couple of seasons prior to this one were not what Penn State fans were wanting or expecting and all of that. But to be fair, from when Franklin took over to now, playoffs notwithstanding, the track record has been pretty good here. I mean, you've had 4 really good seasons under James Franklin. And I think all of that being said, yes, I think next year it will be disappointing. I'm not saying anybody's job is depending on going to the playoffs or anything like that. But yes, I think the average Penn State fan, and I think the players in that locker room next season. Yeah. I think the coaches on that staff next season. If they fall short of the playoffs next year,
come on now.
It is going to be a disappointment.
Yeah.
Now, again, could they be 11-1 and the losses to Ohio State in a close game and they fall short?
In Drew Aller's first year as the starter, I think that kind of a season probably, you're not going to have a lot of torches and pitchforks in that kind of a scenario. Right. So it will still be a disappointment that they didn't make the playoffs, but it's not anyone's going to have their hair on fire, especially because you're bringing your core back for another season. And they've done a good job adding to the 2023 class. We'll see what they do in the transfer portal.
Yep.
By the way, I can give you the rundown on the defensive backs question if you want.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I looked it up here. I did confirm Penn State's never had a DB go in the first round.
That is kind of amazing when you think about it.
It is. So they've had 3 guys go in the second round. Kim Herring, Brian Scott, and Jaquan Brisker. And so depending on whether or not, depending on how you want to classify Brian Scott, he had a really interesting career because he was a corner at Penn State, but he was a bigger bodied corner. So he played most of his NFL career at safety and then got moved to 3-4 linebacker. He played a long time as a linebacker in Buffalo. If I remember though correctly, I do think the Falcons, who was the team who drafted him, I think they tried him at corner. And he just wasn't fast enough to play that spot in the pros. But Wikipedia listing all the Penn State draft picks has him classified as a safety. If you want to think of him as a corner from college, he would be the highest drafted corner to ever come out of Penn State. And if you eliminated him, I think I'm going to go back down here and look. The highest drafted corner who was kind of listed at and played corner in the pros when he got there to come out of Penn State was, I believe, in the 3rd round. And that would be, David Macklin, Rich Gardner, Paul Langford, all drafted in the 3rd round. So this would be making history for Penn State if Joey Porter goes in the 1st round. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that Jair Brown could sneak into the bottom of the 1st round. So you could see something that has never happened before happen twice in the same night. Now, I think Jair probably is in that Brisker mold. I think he's probably a 2nd round pick. Yeah. But unless something crazy happens, I think Joey Porter is going to be a 1st round pick.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think there's much doubt about that. Yeah, unless the only thing would be if something, in the physicals shows up at that. But I mean, other than that,
most evaluations I have seen so far have him no lower than the third highest rated corner, and most of them have him at number 1.
I was going to say 2 is the lowest I've seen in the and most, as you said, have him and well, that'll be a great kind of extra little feather in the cap, to use a Barry Gormanism, for Porter and for Penn State to be able to have him in the first round.
Terry Smith and our DBs coaches, we've had a couple of guys, Poindexter now, but I'm trying to remember who the safeties coach was before. Tim. God, he left to go be a coordinator for a couple years ago. He came over from Illinois. But anyway, the DBs coaches, since James Franklin has got here and Terry Smith's been the constant, they have quietly taken a position which was never a big feeder to the pros at Penn State and cranked out a lot of high caliber guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Nick Scott, Adrian Amos, Jaquan Brisker, all having great seasons this year. I mean, Amos has had a really, really nice pro career.
He's had a remarkable career.
Jordan Lucas, Grant Haley, Amani Oruwariye. That's a lot of guys in a relatively short amount of time.
Yep, no doubt about it. No, that's a very, very cool thing for Joey Porter to put on the resume and to be a first ever at Penn State. Penn State basketball, Booch bemoaning last week the loss to Michigan State. And the problem is it puts you in an 0-2 hole to start conference play.
Godfather Part 3, man. Just when I thought I was out.
Man, I am telling you, that was, for as disappointing as the result was to Michigan State, I mean,
did you have Penn State
from the
getting
get-go
its most dominant road win ever against a Big Ten, ranked Big Ten opponent on your bingo card? Because I didn't.
No, not at this stage, and not coming off the Michigan State loss. That was, man, it was just crazy good.
Yeah, and
a lot of fun to watch.
A ton of attention. You hear, Penn State lost to Michigan State, and you think, well, that's no surprise. They were 4-point favorites. Michigan State was really struggling. They had just lost to to Northwestern in the game prior to playing Penn State. So that was a wounded animal. They had 2 guys on the injured list when they came in. Everything on paper made you think Penn State, hosting them at that moment, had a chance to get what was, just like a win of marginal quality in terms of talent on the floor, but noteworthy because of the program brand. And then when they lose that, you think, oh, man.
But I do think
now you got to go on the road to play a really good Illinois team.
But I do think this is largely what is going to happen throughout not just with Penn State, but with most, if not all, of the teams in the Big Ten. It really is going to be who is on a given night.
It looks that way.
And what the matchup is on a given day and between injury, a whole host of factors are going to come into it. But this league is so strong. I mean, and there's no question. I mean, Illinois, there was a reason that the head coach was going psychotic on the. I mean, that was just it was a pitiful performance by Illinois.
Getting walloped by Penn State will have that effect on coaches. I will never forget.
At home, not being competitive at home. And again, I think it's a very good Penn State team. But yes, I mean, it's the equivalent of, getting absolutely crushed by Northwestern at home in football. Like, even in a good Northwestern year and your team down, you don't expect to get crushed at home by those programs.
Yes. Yeah.
And so now I don't know what to expect from Penn State. I mean, I'm back to thinking that this is a team that can be, 500 in the Big Ten. And I'm telling you, 500 in the Big Ten even with the two losses, because they were both really competitive losses out of conference. I think gets Penn State in the tournament, and I don't think. By the way, I don't think it's a guarantee that Penn State is going to be 500. But I mean, I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Start reasonably having the conversation. So I was discussing last night. What is it going to take for Penn State to start getting votes in the top 25 poll and break in? So I'm going to pull up, because I was looking at the basketball schedule, and I'm going to pull it up here, and I'm going to just share with you what I thought about it, what I think the kind of realistic best case scenario for Penn State to maybe talk about sneaking in the top 25. So their next 3 games are all must-win because they're all against absolute jokers. Here's the lineup Penn State has, all at home: Canisius, Quinnipiac, and Delaware State. Now, 95% of American men's college basketball fans don't know for sure that at least 2 of those 3 schools exist, and only some people have heard of Quinnipiac because they do political polls.
Yeah.
So you maybe heard it mentioned on like CNN or Fox News or something. So we got to beat all 3 of those teams. Then we've got Iowa on New Year's Day. I think because of the Michigan State and Clemson losses, and because of the absolute irrelevance of the 3 teams we're going to play at home here before the turn of the new year, you got to win that Iowa game. And even then, the problem is your next 2 games are a night game at Michigan, 7 o'clock tip-off, and then you play Purdue. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the Philly game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're at the I just had a brain fart. Palestra. Thank you. I'm talking about realistic here, Ironhead. I think you can realistically say Penn State can win 4 straight home games, 3 of them against utter cupcakes. And can they win at Iowa? I'm going to give them the bump as the home team. Win versus Iowa at home. I think it is totally rational to expect them to go 0-2 at Michigan and then against what is currently the number 1 team in Purdue. So then here's your next 4 games. Number 14, Indiana at Penn State, at Wisconsin, Nebraska at home, at Rutgers, and then Michigan comes into the building. And then you got to play Purdue again, by the way, at Purdue. But I think that scenario I just gave you, win your next 4.
Yep.
So the 3 jokers plus Iowa, then you can go 0-2 against Michigan and Purdue.
Yep.
I think if you win those next 4, Indiana, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Rutgers, if you can get that split with Michigan by beating them on your home floor, then you're a top 25 team.
Yeah.
And maybe don't even get bounced out with a loss to Purdue, especially if they're still hanging around, number 1, 2, 3 in the nation.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you need to split with Michigan, and then you need to be able to beat Indiana and Iowa. I think that's what it's going to take, just because, to your point, the conference is so fluid right now.
Yeah, and
if you'd split that Clemson-Michigan State pairing, then it would be a totally different deal. But I think that really drags you down until you can put some better wins on your resume.
Even Virginia Tech. If you just got 1 win out of those 3 games,
yes,
and would have helped to keep it a little closer with Michigan State. But even leaving everything else as is, just get a win against either Virginia Tech or Clemson. Even I think, you're just. Even better yet would be get the win over Michigan State in conference, and you're sitting at 2-0 in Big Ten play in the conference that I think most agree top to bottom is the best in the country. So, but listen, that they're in the mix, and I think it's going to be
because
fun.
Of depth, right?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a fun season. I mean, I think there will be nights that are going to be exasperating. But I think there are going to be nights that are absolutely thrilling. Like that Purdue,
right?
yeah. I mean, even I don't sit here right now and say, well, yeah, Purdue, that's a definite loss. Like, there's not a game on there that you're like, chalk it up. No way that they win that. They they crushed Illinois on the road. It wasn't a competitive game. Now, again, am I expecting them to go into West Lafayette and beat Purdue? No, but am I going to be absolutely stunned? No.
Shrews wants to beat that team in the worst way.
And knows,
right?
and he knows, and listen, he is a good coach. There isn't anybody anywhere that's going to tell you that guy doesn't know how to coach basketball, and he knows that Purdue program. And again, I'm not sitting here guaranteeing or telling you that I'm predicting anything, but I'm just telling you, it's not going to be like with any team on that schedule on a given night. I mean, we've seen much worse Penn State teams knock off teams that are as good for sure as Purdue is this year. So, again, on a given night, this team is certainly capable of beating anybody in the conference. And probably anybody in the country, and certainly on any given night, there's probably 60 to 100 teams that are capable of beating Penn State as well. I mean, it's not like this is a juggernaut that it's going to take something special any time out to beat. Because I do think there's going to be nights where the 3-pointers aren't falling. The thing I did love in that Illinois game is they were taking the intermediate shots that we talked about when they were there, and they were taking the easy baskets a whole lot when they were there.
Yes.
And that was nice to see, because I think that's
Do you think after passing those up against Michigan State, maybe they heard about it a little bit?
I do wonder how much of that is exactly that. Shrewsbury's look at film room is, hey, do you see this?
Do you see
there's nobody around here?
Right
do
under
you
the
see how close
right
you
now?
are?
Yes.
And man, but I mean, to their credit, they did. They capitalized on the opportunities that were there. The 3-point shots were falling at a better rate for sure, but they were not nearly as solely dependent on the 3-point shot falling in that Illinois game. And listen, the inside size or lack thereof is still, I mean, that's going to be an issue that's going to show itself throughout the course of the season. But again, I think this team has a real shot to be a 500 type of team in the Big Ten, and that's going to be a really good place to be. And the other part of it is, I think this thing is still building. It's not like there was a time, pretty much all of Penn State history, where it was like, man, if you could have a season like this, and we'll see how it plays out, but where you think you can be competitive in most games, most nights, and be a 500 team in the Big Ten, it's like, oh yeah, this is the big year, and then we know it's going to be down for 4 or 5 years, but we can get back to this
because everyone off that team has been here for 5 years, and now they're all leaving.
Like I'm pretty confident that this is a building step season.
Yes,
and that the better days for this program are ahead next season and then the season after that, so that if this is kind of and I do think I mean we'll see how it plays out, but as long as Shrewsbury stays here, my guess is that this is probably about as bad as Penn State basketball is going to be in the next 5 years.
That's pretty awesome.
Which,
if that's true,
yeah,
if you're right,
and I think I am with the recruiting.
A reasonable take. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think with the recruiting and the young players, and I think the other thing that I think Shrewsbury is in tune on is the transfer portal and seeing what's available, knowing what's going to fit in with his program. I mean, I do think by and large, Penn State. As a whole, right now, the athletic department is doing a good job of being selective, but bringing in impact players from the transfer portal. And again, across the board, not losing much in that regard in terms of impact players. And I think that's, again, a really good sign for Penn State athletics as a whole. But when we're talking about basketball, again, I do think – I mean, you look at the recruiting, you look at he's still in the process of kind of laying the groundwork here for everything he wants to do, he being Micah Shrewsbury with this program. I think most really good coaches are going to hit their stride in that 4th or 5th year at a program. And I think even in today's world where I know everything is speeding up as a result of all the stuff that we've been talking about, I still think that 4 or 5 year mark is where the really good coaches are going to start hitting their stride with getting the team in that they want and having a complete command on how they're running the program and what players are expected to do and vice versa. And I just think, if that is the case, again, man, think where this team's going to be at, this program's going to be at. When's the last time you realistically, seriously thought, Penn State could go on a 3-4 year run in the NCAA tournament? I mean, when's the last year that you've thought back-to-back seasons that you might have thought maybe if everything goes right, they could do this, after an NCAA tournament season? But there's been few and far between. I really can't remember one where it's like coming off of an NCAA tournament season, you're like, I really think they're going to get there next year. And you might think they have a chance, but
probably like 95.
Yeah, I mean.
Which to you and me doesn't sound that long ago, but was over a quarter century now. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, fun times anyway. Fun times for Penn State hockey. That is a team that it continues to play inspired hockey, and I just think is
series splits starting to get a little concerning.
Yeah. But series splits it would be like, Penn State football splitting a couple of games over 2 weeks with Ohio State or with Michigan. Sure. I mean, you're talking about other teams that are heading to the playoffs when you're talking, and I'm going to end up forgetting teams, but I mean, Michigan, Notre Dame, those are Minnesota. Those are not bad programs to begin. I hear you. And yes, it'd be nice to get one of those where you get a sweep for sure.
Michigan, Minnesota split, perfect, no problem. But then you follow it up by splitting with both Michigan State and Notre Dame, not so good.
No,
if you want to be taken seriously as a top 5 program, you got to at least go 3-1 in those games.
Although I do think, we'll see. Well, I think this program is. I think its best hockey is still to come. I think it's still. It's a very talented team, but it's still a young roster, and I think there's still some things that they're, as well as they have played, and they have played really well. I think there are some things that they are still figuring out in terms of. All right, this is what we want to do. In particular on the defensive end of the ice and the strategies that and how to implement the strategies consistently. We'll see. Again, the season will play out and we'll know. But I really like the position that this team has put itself in. And I think the second half, if you will, it's not really the second half, but January on, I think is going to be a whole lot of fun. For Penn State hockey and fans of Penn State hockey.
Agreed.
Steelers, I did not see any of it because, Penn State was wrestling Oregon State Sunday at Rack Hall. I'm tracking a little bit. It's like,
fortunately for you, it seems.
And then, so I listened to a good bit of the post-game show while waiting the eternity that it is to get out of the Penn State parking deck after a wrestling match. Mind you, I didn't get out to the garage until close to an hour. There were some things that I was doing at Rec Hall even after getting off the air. So I'm like, the nice thing about being here this long is I'll be able to zip out. I'm not kidding. It was an hour after the meet that I went up there, and it was another half hour till I got out of the garage.
Oh, yeah.
Why they can't just take there may be reasons. I'm not looking to start anything, but have people hand you the $10 when they go in the garage, like you do at Beaver Stadium or at the Jordan Center, and be done with it.
Yeah.
Leave the gates open so that you get some sort of a flow, because inevitably, and I feel for the people. I mean, they're not, but you will get people that don't know, and then they blocked off, how to use the system, or they know how, and for whatever reason, it's having trouble. I mean, it just, and you get one of those. Even without any of those, and there's always going to be some of those. Even without any of those, the fact that you have to take every car has to go up, stop, scan.
Here's
sometimes
my
a couple
theory
of times.
of the case: park a car up on the top floor of that Nittany parking deck. And after the match is over, say, okay, Pat Kraft, you got to go take that car and drive home. I promise you.
Yeah.
That'll get fixed the following day.
But why don't, there must be reasons. I'll have to, and I haven't asked anybody, and that's what I should do before I'm bring it up here. But it does not make any sense to me that you can't just give the $10 as you're going in.
Yeah.
And then just leave it open from, 2 hours after the match begins, or an hour and a half after the match begins, if there's people that want to head out early, an hour and a half after the match ends to 4 hours after. I mean, you're going to make,
and if there's some
people that go in and
person
out
that wants to save $2 by parking their car,
right? That's what I'm saying. That you're making $10. Yes, to me, I don't know. That just seems because it is just a painful situation. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to get sidetracked on. But listening to the post game show,
I bet there were a lot of rational, thoughtful takes from the Steelers.
Amazing how many people are just completely supportive still of Mike Tomlin and believe the brighter days are just around the corner. Very rational takes, but. Listen, I love Savrin and I think he and Charlie Batch do a great job with that post game show.
Yeah,
but I think as with anything, you only get so many opportunities, and you've got to cash in on the opportunities when they're there.
Yeah,
and there were just way too many missed opportunities for the Steelers. And the thing is. That is such a frustrating game on so many levels. I mean, obviously it's your rivals, but the fact that it's a hindered rival on the injury front, and you're not able to take advantage of that. You had built some momentum, winning 3 of your last 4, and looking for a 3-game winning streak. And as we talked about last week, a chance here to really get on a roll at the end of the season, and then you tack on. The injury to Pickett, and the whole, it just was frustrating in every way imaginable. I think for the Steelers and their fans on Sunday, and we'll see. I still think that they can get a lot done here in the remainder of the season, but. They're a good ways away, obviously, from being any kind of a contending team.
Yeah.
And I will be interested to see what the approach is in this offseason, both with the draft, but also with free agencies. And if the Steelers, who never make trades except for the Fitzpatrick, which was fantastic, but I feel like it is possible that the Steelers will be in the trade market and at least be looking to see if they, because I don't think, on one hand, I think they're very far away, but it's the NFL. You get 3 or 4 of the right players, right?
Yep.
Like I think that defense, when healthy, and that's a big if right now, if healthy, because of the age of some of the guys now too. But if healthy, I think that's a really good defense still right now. But you're getting some players that are starting to get, long in the tooth. And then, offensively, you've still got to figure out the offensive line. That's still a huge, huge component right now. And listen, the debate is going to rage on for a while here as to whether or not they have their long-term answer at quarterback or not.
But they're not going to be quick on the trigger.
No, and I still think that they do. No, they're not. They're not going to move on from Kenny Pickett next season. And I don't think they should. By the way, I'm not
think
saying
shown
I'm upset about
of reason to be optimistic about where he'll be in the next few years.
Yeah, and I think, but you've got to get some better protection for him, and you've got to get some better pieces in around him. So I don't know. I'm not as I'm okay with the Steelers being in rebuilding mode here for a couple of seasons. This has been a fantastic run that the Steelers have been on over the really over the course of my lifetime. But I mean, and I'm okay with it taking a few years with a new quarterback to get everything up and running. The people that are, this is just some of the talk shows is like, well, this is all at the feet of Mike Tomlin, and that's fair enough. But I mean, the track record here is pretty good with Tomlin, and you're just not going to have a great team every year, a playoff team every year in the NFL.
Correct.
The New England Patriots and Bill Belichick did it as well as anybody, when Brady was there. But I mean, they've fallen off with that outbreak.
Yeah.
You
and they
just
were kind of the exception that
and
proves
they
the
were
rule.
very much the outlier there. So again, the fact that they may be down for a couple of years here, I think I'm one of the few. And listen, would I rather be a playoff team every year? Absolutely. But I get it, and I don't think it's the end of the world as we know it, that it's going to take a little while to figure out with a new quarterback how to get all of the right pieces in there.
Well, and the division, Jeff, is just so fluid. I mean, Joe Burrow's going to be there for a while, but who knows what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. And the Browns look like they're a total mess.
Again, which
as
is
usual.
And 2 years
that
ago,
franchise is a wreck.
And I was buying into it. You were not, but 2 years ago, virtually everybody, and I was one of them. It's like, man, the Browns this is built for long-term success, and look out down the road. We don't know when it's going to come together, but it's clearly going to come together, and it's not coming together.
Tell me another one, guys. Tell me another one. Hey, I would like to say a few words about Mike Leach. God rest his soul.
Man,
that one
stunned me.
Yeah, I do not get bothered by celebrity deaths almost ever. I'm genuinely sad about this. I mean, it's always you're always sad for the people's family and loved ones and that sort of thing. But it just kind of hit me. Like, I love college football so much, in part because it's such a unique sport that is maybe less so than it used to be, but still very regional compared to a lot of other sports.
Yep.
And so much driven over the years by the unique personalities. And he was absolutely one of them. He just made the sport more fun to follow on and off the field.
Yep.
And I want to make sure I credit the guy properly. I'm going to pull my phone out here to make sure I get the correct reference. I read an unbelievable Twitter thread that it's as good an obituary is going to be written for Mike Leach, the football coach, as will exist, by a guy named Chris B. Brown. And his Twitter handle is @SmartFootball. And I just followed him. If this thread is any indication, it's appropriately named. He wrote such a thoughtful, insightful thread on the impact Mike Leach has had on the sport of football in America. And he talked about, if you remember going all the way back to the Kentucky team that Penn State played in the 98 Outback Bowl.
Yep.
That was the Tim Couch's senior year. Mike Leach was an assistant on Hal Mummy's staff in Kentucky. So he had that job before he went on the following year to take the OC job under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. And then from there, he went Oklahoma to head coach at Texas Tech. And this guy just tracked the impact of the Mummy Leach offensive philosophy on college football and its trickle-down effect to high school football in the South and then in the Big 12 and in Texas, in terms of how you had these two regions of the country, which are absolute hotbeds of high school talent and future college coaches who were all well into the mid to late 90s and early 2000s running like split veer, like power eye, wishbone style offenses, and then introduced to this entirely different philosophy of wide open, kind of democratized, passing oriented offenses that did not require a blue chip, surefire NFL first-round draft pick quarterback to execute. And how much of that was driven behind the scenes or ahead of the pack, depending on where you are and what time frame, by Mike Leach at Kentucky, at Oklahoma, at Texas Tech, and the way that basically revolutionized the way that entire conference in terms of the Big 12 played football, and the tremendous spillover effect to all of college and high school football, and then eventually it worked its way up to influence professional football in the 2010s. Nobody's ever solely responsible for any of this, but he makes a really compelling case for Mike Leach, who is just such a fun guy off the field, as one of the most influential on-the-field coaching figures in football over the last 25 years. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and one of the most unique, just a whole lot of fun and very much not the mold of what you think of
not at all
as old school football coaches. And, there are just not a lot of guys that are truly one-of-a-kind characters that can break through in sports and forge their own path and as you said, influence and inspire so many in such an impactful and meaningful way. And it's just crazy how quickly his health problems occurred. And
61.
Yeah, just way too young for anybody. But man,
and how about the last game he ever coached was winning his first Egg Bowl? That's pretty cool.
That is.
I mean, it feels like that's a coda on the guy's career that you're happy that he had. That's one of the great rivalries in college football, and his coaching legacy has been everywhere he went. He was an unconventional guy, and he was always these kind of left to center programs: Texas Tech, Washington State, Mississippi State, and he won everywhere. He elevated every one of those programs to win at a level that they were not used to winning at consistently.
Yeah, and he was just as good an interview as we've had in sports. Period.
Big time.
So. To say he will be missed is certainly an understatement in the college football world in particular. Real quickly too, just touching on Penn State wrestling, it was I will say not as high of paced of action as we're used to seeing this past Sunday against Oregon State. I think with finals coming up with Oregon State was well coached, well prepared, and I think was able to slow some things down. It was one of those matches that there just wasn't a whole lot that had you buzzing afterward. I mean, it was a good win, solid win, and it wasn't. I thought Penn State wrestled poorly. It just was not as many moments of dynamic excitement as you're used to seeing
Oregon
from
State
that program.
Stack up nationally?
They've got a real nice dual team. I think they're ranked 25th in the dual rankings.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a little low for the dual rankings, and they're not ranked in the tournament. My guess is with a couple of the guys that they have that they could crack at the NCAA tournament. They could be a top 20 team, but they'll be at the lower end. I mean,
Sure.
20 to 25 is probably where I'm expecting to finish up. I think they have a couple of guys that will get on the podium there in March, but there are there's not a lot of weakness in that lineup. There's not a lot of top end, national title caliber talent, but it's a solid team. And I think Chris Pendleton, their head coach, is, give them a couple more years here. And I think they're going to be very consistently competitive, at least with Arizona State, which is clearly the standard bearer right now out west and in the Pac-12.
Is there much in terms of like talent, high school competition, whatever, up in the Pacific Northwest area? Like, do they have any kind of a national recruiting footprint?
There's not a ton. That every year there are some elite kids that come out of there, but it's not like, you're sending, Pennsylvania is probably sending 60 to 80 starters every year into the D1 ranks.
Right.
That might even be low.
Right.
I mean, you're getting a handful each year out of the Pacific Northwest. I would like, Oregon has some good high school wrestling. Again, not great. They've had some great individuals come out of there, but same thing with Washington. California's had more great wrestlers, and they do a pretty good job recruiting there, and they get the occasional kid from Arizona. Obviously, Arizona State does very well in state there too. Yeah. But Penn State has picked a couple pretty good ones out of Arizona too. So, but yeah, they're as with any team now in wrestling, and I guess really in college sports, you're recruiting nationally anymore. I mean, but trying to get people, you're trying to get people to choose Corvallis over, Tempe number one if you're Oregon State, and then but for the top end guys out there, I mean, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa. I mean, all those teams are coming in on those high end guys, and again, if you're an elite wrestler out of one of those states, the draw to go to a top 5 program versus one that's trying to build into that can be pretty compelling. But Chris Pendleton is a good name. I mean, he's a big name in the sport, 2-time national champion at Oklahoma State, and so I think he's got a chance to do some good things there on a consistent basis. But excited to see how Penn State does down at New Orleans with the National Collegiate Duels coming up. And your Philadelphia Eagles, I will say, are as impressive as any team out there, Bills and Chiefs and 49ers included. That is just I don't know how the playoffs are going to play out. Nobody does. But, man, that Eagles team, I really think with the way Jalen Hurts is playing, that is that team's got as good a shot as anybody in the NFL is this year walking away.
They're well put together. They're well coached. Yeah, it is a really good team. I felt good, very good about the work that was done in the offseason coming into the season. And I told some people that, and I think they thought I was just, I midnight green colored glasses, like just seeing the world like blowing smoke. But I won't do that. In fact, I probably have a little bit of the Philly fan disease where I'll be negative to a fault. But just looking at the way the team was put together and the moves they made in the draft, in trade, in free agency, the whole thing, you just felt like if Jalen Hurts can take the next step, this is a team that can win the NFC.
I think he took a couple. And it is cool.
I mean, totally. I'll tell you what, you want to talk about absolutely dodging a bullet. We'll never know exactly how far along the conversations went, but there is, in my mind, no doubt that Howie Roseman was in and potentially in hot and heavy on the Russell Wilson trade talks.
Yeah.
And my Lord, Ironhead, oh God, good God, can you imagine that dead cap hit those 4 saps out in Denver? I feel bad. Denver seems like they have really good football fans. I feel bad for those folks who are stuck with that guy. I mean, I don't know what you do, but I'll pat myself on the back for being in the let's stick with Jalen Hurts camp, because I felt like he committed to the guy. We've seen enough. The cost of trading for a Russell Wilson is a little too. Let's roll with him and see what we got. Never in my wildest dreams did I think, oh yeah, well, it's because he's going to have an MVP caliber season. It was because I thought this guy, I think, has the potential to mature into a top 12 starter. And my rule is always like, if you got a top 12 guy, you stick with them. let's go one more season to see if he can be a top 12 caliber player. He's playing like a top 2 quarterback right now.
Yep, and really cool to see Miles Sanders having the season he's having.
Did you see his quote after the game? As an Eagles and Penn State fan, I absolutely love it.
No.
So I don't know if you know this or not. He is the first Eagles back to rush for 1,000 yards in a season since Shady did it in 2014. Yeah. He also has 10 rushing touchdowns this season after having 0 last season.
Yep.
And so, there was this knock on him, which was totally crazy. It was just like a weird confluence of circumstances that he didn't have a rushing touchdown last year. Injuries, personnel choice on the goal line. Jalen Hurts is a running quarterback, so he kind of vultured a lot of goal line scores. But somebody asked him after the game, they brought all this up, and they're like, Miles, what means more to you, the yards or the touchdowns? And his response, Super Bowl. I love that. I've always rooted for Miles, man. He's a very easy player to root for.
He is.
As an Nittany Lion, as an Eagle. So, yeah, I love it. And I think that's legitimately, that's his attitude. That's the attitude of the team right now. They are laser focused on get the job done. Don't worry about the stats. Don't worry about who gets the catches. Bringing in A.J. Brown means that Devontae Smith, for the first time in a long, long time, was not a number 1 receiver, and he's been getting his opportunities. Yeah. I love the attitude of the whole team.
Yeah, hard not to be impressed with.
I also love the O-line's Christmas album. Now. I don't know if you've heard any of it, but Jordan Mailata might be one of the most interesting football players of the millennium. 7th-round pick, Australian rules football player, who becomes one of the best starting left tackles in the league and might eventually go the Mike Reed route, Ironhead. The man could win a Grammy before all is said and done.
So much talent in one individual and so little in this individual. Just not fair.
I know. It makes you jealous, right?
Big time. We will be back on Thursday with another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show. Until then, be good and be safe.
Go Birds.
Make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local Lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the number 1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, 3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny sent you.